years that I've rubbed elbows with, especially after they found out I had a couple, three top secret clearances, would talk to me about things that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. But there's enough information there for a whole show, Gary, so I'm not going to get into that right now.
No, you're absolutely right. But it tells me that we have and we are being visited. I find it very strange right now, honestly, that, again, Whitley and Art Bell wrote the book Superstorm. They were off by about 25, 30 years because it's happening. Scientists for years said, oh, no, it's all hogwash. We got people right now in Washington, D.C. It's hogwash. It's not happening. They don't care about, our futures. Hey, strip the EPA, do all this stuff. Something is going on. Antarctica, the temperature, the other day, you could go down there, bring your wife, girlfriend, in a bikini and walk around. That's how warm it was in Antarctica. It's never been that warm. Yeah. Last summer, 97 degrees in Alaska, where it never has been over 40 in that one area. 97. You trying to tell me something isn't going on? Now, the other people come back, well, no, other parts of the country are colder than ever. Yeah, that's what happens when we go through one of these cycles of a climate change where we go back into a mini ice age or an ice age. Certain parts of this, the whole world doesn't freeze up. It's certain parts of it. You're from this area. If you check back the last ice age we had here in our own state, Seattle was under a couple thousand feet of ice. But if you travel
11 miles.
Yeah. But if you travel, I was so many miles away from it, the temperatures
60 miles and it wasn't there.
Yeah, it was warm. Isn't that scary? So, something is happening. Again, I was just reading the other day, the belt coming from the equator, that warm water, is now kind of like slowing down. It's spreading wider, so it's getting cooler. If that cools down, there's a mini ice age will develop really fast in Europe. If you remember, around 1900s, people were freezing to death in Russia because they couldn't get warm because it got that cold. They were burning their everything in their houses to try to stay warm. Many of them froze to death in their own houses. UK, England went into where the Thames River froze up solid. A lot of weird things, okay? And people sit there and say, it's not happening. I had a guy on the show here a week or two ago tell me it's not happening. It's all, it's just all lies. Well, it's not. The sea is rising. It's a fact. And it's not now where it is going to be 50 years off. We're talking, maybe 20 years from now, 25 years at the max, we're going to see major things going. Why is the biggest bottling companies coming into our state of Washington and buying water rights like mad?
They're doing it hand over fist in central and eastern Washington.
Yeah. Tell me why.
Oh, why. Water is going to be more precious than gold.
Oh, yeah.
It will be. Definitely.
You can't live without it. Neither can your animals.
Yeah, that's scary.
Gary, that story, I did a news bit tonight about the scientist who said that in 100 years, humans are going to be extinct. And he was the one to help eradicate smallpox. Well, he said almost verbatim what I've been saying for a year, because I'm all about statistics. 40 years ago, we had 3.5 billion people on this earth. We have over almost 8 billion now. Now, you go 20 years in the future, we're going to have 15, 20 billion. That's a lot of consumption, a lot of waste. That's a lot of material. That's a lot of people, disease, and a lot of things could happen. It's a recipe for disaster. It just is. And then you've got water shortage.
Now, I don't think it'll be that many people by that point.
You don't think it'll be 15 billion by 2040?
I don't. I think it's going to be thinned out long before that. Oh. I also think, what's all the people on the East Coast and the West Coast going to do when the water comes up, okay, and starts coming in and certain areas are underwater? They're going to have to move inland. What's going to happen then with the population? How far inland are they going to go? And by
I think
then,
I'll go into the land management business and start selling waterfront property in Arizona.
yeah, that's a good one. But then we also have the magnetic field. Right now, it's flipping back and forth. A lot of people don't even understand or know what that is. The magnetic field has been changing. That's what the airliners use, the military use, your GPS system, all that stuff. Okay?
Well, the birds use it.
Yeah, and that's why we're seeing pelicans and all these other birds and places we've never been seen before, and people think, oh, no, that's a Mothman. That's another one. But here's the thing. This is going on faster and faster. They're having repeatedly, it's happening several times a month, where the poles are flipping real quick back and forth, and then it stabilizes back. And people don't realize that. And that's what happened when it flipped the last time. Scientists have no idea what happens when the poles do flip. Was it going to be normal like it normally is? Or is it going to be massive 800-mile-an-hour winds coming through?
Mammoths and mastodons with fresh green grass in their mouth because it was instantaneous what hit.
Whatever hit with them, the theory is part of them, depending on part of the world, part of them froze instantly. The other ones were barbecued instantly.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So we got to find a place in between.
Yeah, fine line. That's right.
When you find it, let me know. I'll be your neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, Major Danes, 20 years ago kept saying there's a kill shot. He did remote viewing. Well, I made fun of him, for 20-some years. So did my friend. But the kill shot never came. But you know what? Just like Whitney and Art wrote the book Superstorm, they were off 30 years. Think about that.
You know what? I think that getting an exact, it's really difficult to get an exact timeline when you're doing remote viewing. I've done it, and I'm not going to elaborate, but to try to get an exact timeline on things like that happen, Gary, it's an inexact science, so to speak. You can't, when you're coming up with timelines for climate change or catastrophic events, you can see it, and you can come up with maybe a couple of decades, but to pinpoint it, and then say, well, he was all wrong because it didn't happen. Well, not necessarily. You're talking about something that you can see like a general scenario, so to speak, but you can't pinpoint timelines. It's really difficult to do.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm just saying. Again, like the Superstorm book, they were off 30 years. One of the things a couple days before Art passed on, I had a phone conversation with him, and he sent me the book, and I got it like the day after he died. And I haven't cried in many years, and that was the first cry I had in many, many years. But because I got that book right after he died, we were talking about it a few days before he died, and he sent me a copy because he knew I wanted one. But the thing is, we were talking. I said, Art, your book that you and Whitney wrote was like 30 years off. And he goes, I know, but it's happening. I go, yeah, it is. But it was happening.
There was nothing wrong at all with the information that they put in there, and so the timeline wasn't right. I don't hold people. I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination, anyone with a cerebral cortex is going to hold it against Whitley and Art for being 30 years off. I certainly don't, because, like you said, climate change is real. You can go ahead and say whatever you want about who's causing it or why it's happening, but it's a reality. It is happening.
Now, I think at this part too, like I was talking to Art too about it, because we talked about it for about 20 minutes. I said to Art, you know what? I don't think it's anything we can do to stop it. We can maybe slow it down and buy a little more time, but there's no way to stop it. And he said that'll never happen. And he was so right. Look, China puts out so much pollution, more than every country combined comes out of China.
And they don't care.
No, it's all about the buck.
Yeah. They do not care. They're interested in becoming the I'll call it Panex China. They want to basically control, they want to have the supreme oligarchy control mechanism, and they want it globally, and they've done a pretty good job of getting there. But
yeah, that's scary too, because financially they're going to be there, and military-wise they're going to be there.
The problem is that they're going to run into the same thing that a lot of empires are run into. It's called the law of overstretch, and you can only go so far with the people and the resources that you have, and then something somewhere has to give, and that's one of the reasons that we end up in wars that we do. Hitler basically invaded Russia because he wanted, room for people in industry, and they had the resources, and his basic premise for his ideology of genetic superiority was, that's how you justify killing these people off.
Yeah, you're right. But, if you really, really think about it, we're heading that way right now. I mean, it's
unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point is Hitler went to a point and then it imploded on him. Rome, look at that. They conquered quite a bit of the world, didn't they? All the way up to England, Scotland, and Ireland, and all these other places. A lot of people.
They went to Turkey.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize it. I mean, that's how far they went, but they went bankrupt doing it too, didn't they?
Well, like I said, it's the law of overstretch, and they went down in chaos and ruin, and you had all these people that basically had their own self-centered agendas that caused that to happen, and that happens in empire after empire after empire. The average life expectancy of an empire is 235 years. I think that we're coming up on that now. So, we're going to see how we fare. I think that it's really a good thing that you have the show that you do and you present the information that you do, because it gets people to think. And if for no other reason, you're going to stimulate thought processes in people globally, and that's a good thing.
Well, that's what I try to do. My concern right now is we got so many things that's going on that I classify as a diversion. One, like I mentioned earlier, cutting Social Security, cutting, Medicaid, cutting all that stuff is a diversion to something else. Something else is on the horizon, and we'll find out here in the next couple months. Before the election, we're going to find out. And that's what I am kind of nervous about this time around. Because I tell you, after what I saw in Washington, D.C., both Democrat and Republican, it made me sick to my stomach. Because regardless, here we had the head of, the Supreme Court there as a figurehead. Right. I tell you what, if you know what? If I went out and killed a dozen people tomorrow, I would like to have the senators as my jury. Because you know what? That's how I feel. I feel like if you can't bring in any proof, call any witnesses to prove anything, it's not a trial. It's nothing. It's a farce. And that's what we went through.
I knew months and months and months ago when this whole dog and pony show started that it was going to go absolutely nowhere, because understanding the government and how it works and understanding who the final arbiters are in a situation like that, I knew the Senate was going to do what it did. And that was months ago. I mean, I talked to my neighbors about it. So nothing surprised me whatsoever.
No, but again, they took an oath for the country, didn't they? And they didn't live up to it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you and I took oaths as military service members to uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Remember that little we got sworn in?
Yep.
And, I think that people like you and I try to live up to that to the best of our ability. I tried to do it as a cop.